great.
Good.
But so did everybody else. Everybody had just really good speeches. And usually there's at least a couple of weak sisters. Not this time. There were 9 really top-notch speeches. So I didn't feel bad. I was hoping I would end up on top. I didn't feel bad at all that I didn't win. Wasn't even in the top 3. And I'll bet the difference between first and last wasn't more than a few points, just from what I observed. It was an amazing contest. So, just to get that out of the way. I had one person that emailed me a detailed introduction and everything, and I don't see her.
I think she's using the restroom.
Oh, okay, hope everything comes out all right. I'm famous for breathing down the time.
Okay.
Yes.
The people who are picking us up on the microphone need a little bit louder. So
Okay, I will try to be louder.
there you go. And look over that way once in a while.
Yeah, once in a while. Yeah, we have 2 very beautiful ladies up there, so I'm more than happy to speak louder to try and accommodate you as part of the meeting. I'm not hearing you today, but in the time that I've been here, I have thoroughly enjoyed hearing you when you got your chances. My theme today is tourist season. Tourist season comes on every year, starting about Memorial Day, which is coming up the end of this month. That's when we get the inundation of tourists into the Newport area. And not all of them are the largest bulbs in the Christmas tree. And they give me, with my job at the hotel, I get plenty of fodder for stories for Toastmasters. One of my favorite stories from Toastmasters is when people have actually called me up at the hotel, which is down on the beachfront, and they ask me, can you do something about that light that's flashing in my window? And I have to explain, lady, that's a lighthouse. You'll have to call the Coast Guard to get something done about that. I rant every year about this time of the year. Throughout my running theme today, when I've got a little filler time, I'm on my cabin when the tourists invade Newport, starting about next month, and it's going to go on for 4 months. I think tourist season ought to be like hunting season. There ought to be a bag limit. You ought to be allowed at least 2 a year. We have several people that are doing roles today. We have 2 speakers, one of whom I got John, the one that gave me the notice. I didn't get a last name for John. What? I'm not sure about what your title is. I should have sent an email asking for that, but I don't have everybody's email either, so that wasn't going to work. I did get Krista's, and
Actually, Dave, you do have everybody's email, because on the emails that I send out, it has all of the Toastmasters emails. So I just to clarify, you do have everybody's email.
well, I had his first name, John, several times, but I never got the last name for John until just now. But I have it now. We have a few roles that are being filled today, and so I'm going to go through these. One of the troubles I have now, since I had my stroke last year, is I have trouble reading, even my own writing that I wrote down. So as I do this, our grammarian today is
Jaylee.
Jaylene.
Yes.
Jaylene, okay, Jaylene. Jaylene, what are your duties today as grammarian? And you have a word of the day.
I do. So this is my first time as grammarian. So when I looked it up online this morning, it said, catch everything everyone does wrong, pretty much. And I thought, wait, I know that's not the way we do it here. So, there's one. So that's one thing I'm going to do is count those ums and ahs and so's. And the other thing is glaring grammatical errors. I'll do my best to catch those. And the word of the day in honor of primary elections today is elect. So you can use this a few different ways. As a verb, used with an object, it's to choose or select by vote. As for office, as in to elect a mayor or a county commissioner. To elect in favor of, so a method, to pick out or to choose. First-year students may elect French, Spanish, or German. Another way to use it as a verb with object is theology. I think this is interesting. Theology came up a few times in this definition. Of God, to select for divine mercy or favor, especially for salvation. And then as a verb used without an object, to choose or select someone or something, as by voting. As an adjective, can be used as selected for an office, but not yet inducted. For example, the governor-elect. Or as select for choice, as in an elect circle of artists. And again with theology, chosen by God, especially for eternal life. And the last area is as a noun, a person or the persons chosen or worthy to be chosen. And again, theology, a person or persons chosen by God, especially for favor or salvation. That is the word of the day.
And we have
Yeah. Yes, you do. And I hope you all voted for the person you want to elect into office today.
And Julia, tell us a little bit about what you're up to today. I see you've got all the required equipment there today.
Yes, so I will be timing the speeches and table topics, and depending on the time, it'll be green will be the first sign, yellow, red. So
Both speeches are 5 to 7.
that's what I was gonna confirm. Yes, I just, okay, so it'll be at 7 minutes.
And Laura Lee has consented to be our table topics elect person. Would you have any clues about what you have?
A selling mood today because we are going to sell to each other different vacation packages.
If I get that question, and one of my favorite people in the world is going to be, not that I'm trying to butter her up anything, is going to be our general evaluator. And what are you up to, Lori?
Well, once I leave the meeting, I'm going to go with Lucas. You mean my role today?
Yes, ma'am.
My role as general evaluator is to evaluate the evaluators as well as the people who are the postmaster and other things that I see. So I get to evaluate the meeting as a whole, and elect which parts I want to.
Okay, I think that takes care of the different roles before I actually get into the meeting. Our first speaker. One of my favorite stories that happened a few years ago is a lady called me in the middle of the night and asked me about one of those lights I see out there in the ocean. And my answer to her, those lights were the starfish. And she said, well, some of those lights are brighter than the others. And I said, well, those are the moonfish. And then finally she said, oh, I thought they might have been boats. And I scratched my head and I said, well, you got me on that one. Our first speaker is John Cox. I'm not sure, when you came on about the same time I left the first time, so you're
A little before that, I think.
Yeah. So you're actually getting to be an experienced speaker now, although I haven't got to hear you since I came back.
This is just my second speech, actually.
Okay, so I'm hearing you all that time, the second thing about it, you manage that.
Skill.
Okay, well, I am very much looking forward to your speech. Do you have a speech title?
Programmable perfection. So I just came up with it.
Programmable perfection. Perfection is something that I have never achieved when it comes to programming. So I'm very anxious to hear this. Please welcome John this morning.
Hello, everyone. So, are any of you tired of aging? Are you weary of diseases like cancer? And are you sometimes irritated that your children or grandchildren just don't look right? The future may hold answers to some of these questions and more, and we looked at bacteria for the answers as usual. More specifically, we're looking at DNA sequences in bacteria called clustered, regularly interspaced, short palindromic repeats, or CRISPR. Many of you have probably heard about CRISPR. So CRISPR is used by bacteria as a defense against viral attacks. It's used to repair their own DNA and to cut out foreign DNA and generally maintain integrity. So scientists have figured out how to use CRISPR in a modified programmable system that can be used to edit genes, can be used to cut out genes, replace, put in new genes, in basically anything with DNA, plants, animals, humans. And this is still in its early phases of use in humans, but it's been used in at least 86 people that I know of in China, and it's been used in animals to do things like restore vision in animals that were congenitally blind, so some pretty amazing things. The applications of what CRISPR is able to do are just really astounding, as you might imagine, that kind of technology. One of the things we might be able to do is modify mosquitoes to make them unable to transmit malaria, which kills countless people worldwide, so that would be a huge step. It can also really cure or treat thousands of horrible genetic diseases in humans, some of which are fatal in the early stages of life. And it could be used to elongate telomere cell structures involved in cell regeneration and potentially elongate lifespan significantly. And it could even be used to bring back extinct animals. So if you didn't watch Jurassic Park as Prophecy, maybe you should watch it again. And of course, with something this powerful and this complex, there are downsides. And one of these is just how complex genes are. And genes are not like one gene codes for one trait. Many traits are controlled by many genes. They interact with the environment, and genes are interconnected. So while you're trying to repair one problem, you could create a worse problem if you don't know what you're doing yet. And scientists are working on these questions. They're trying to figure out these interactions, figure out how to be able to do this safely. But I think we're still a long way off. And of course, there's serious ethical questions involved as well. One of these is the viewpoint that altering DNA is playing God. Is something that we shouldn't do, while other people contend that really any medical intervention is playing God. Immunizations, treating diseases once you have them, it's all in a way the same thing. I don't know where that line is. Germline editing is another concern. Germline cells are cells that are involved in reproduction. When you edit a germline cell, that edit is passed on to all future generations. So in a way you are, or not in a way, you are altering future generations without their consent. That's one concern people have brought up, but at the same time, to me, everything is done without their consent. You know, they didn't consent to be born. It's just something that happens. Other cell edits, somatic cells, these are body cells not involved in reproduction, like eye cells, the vision being restored in animals. Those types of edits, when elected, are not heritable. So that only affects that individual. So to me, those kinds of edits are much less ethically fraught. Now, another concern that many have heard about is the idea of designer babies. Designer baby is that people who have the money to pay for people to use CRISPR on their embryos to really select for the traits that they want, pick out, eye color, whatever, to do everything and have this in their eyes perfect baby. And one of the things this brought to my mind is simply that there's already a huge divide between rich and poor, and this could really exacerbate the division between classes. It's easy to imagine a world where the rich and powerful have, beautiful, smart, resistant to disease children, and the rest of us are still dealing with the same problem. We're still needing medical intervention, and we're the same people that can't pay for healthcare. So it could really just make everything that much worse. And I actually just heard this quote on NPR yesterday that I thought I'd throw in. It's talking about the class divide in America, the hereditary aristocracy of wealth and power. And this just adds another element to that. It's genes that are, you plot your good genes too. So I think humans are pretty powerless to not use a technology once we've developed it. We have this technology, we're going to use it, I think. And I just hope that we can use it in ways that are ethically considered, that we use caution and restraint. And I think it's going to save us from a lot of horrible suffering in the future. I really do, but I also think it's going to be used, in the wrong way. Some mistakes are going to be made. And I just hope that as a society and world, we kind of come together and make decisions about how to use it ethically. But more than anything, I want to encourage you all to go buy CRISPR, because you can buy it online. And it's not that expensive. So get in those basements and start experimenting, because it's easy to imagine the world where the X-Men is a reality soon. And it's not that I'm so concerned that they're going to be hurting us, but I just think we should be able to keep up.
Well, you take a couple minutes to fill out your little individual evaluations. One of my other pet peeves about this time of year, tourist season, is we have the invasion of the Winnebagos. Winnebagos are these big motorhomes that you see on the highway. totally capable, best as everybody else on the highway, but they tend to go about 20 miles lower than the speed limit while they're gawking at whatever's going on the ocean. So instead of watching the highway and where they're going, they've got their eyes on the ocean, and they're going 20 miles an hour slower than the speed limit. If you have to go to work, that's kind of annoying. If you have to go anywhere, that's kind of annoying. I have to drive to the town to the north of us, Lincoln City. It's about a half-hour drive for me to get where I'm going there this time of year. Starting next month, it's probably going to take me closer to an hour to make that drive due to the invasion of the Winnebagos. What I hate most about the Winnebagos is when you finally hit an area where you can pass somebody, they can also go 70 miles an hour. And because there's nothing for them to gawk at while they're going on that passing lane, they go 70 miles an hour, so you can't pass them. It's rather irritating. I haven't yet figured out a solution for the Winnebagos. If you can, just take an alternate route. But where I'm going, there is no alternate route. I just have to suffer the Winnebagos every year this time of year. Our second speaker knows that I like to have an introduction sent to me. She sent me a rather long one. And even as big as I write with my stroke, I have trouble reading these things. So I'm just kind of going to wing this.
Good thing you said that.
Krista has a BS. We all know what that means. In biology. And her first job, I knew this, I've heard this story before, at least this on the introduction, was in Alaska as a fisheries biologist. She goes out with the fishing boats and logs in the types and kinds of fishes they're catching for the government and also for the health of the fishermen. That's how she got to find out about being, can't remember, Dutch Harbor 10. So that's one of my favorite things. She is a quite attractive lady anyway. Please welcome our Dutch Harbor 10, Krista Colway. And her title is Lost What Now?
Is really lost until mom can't find it. We've all lost things from time to time. Sometimes they're important, and other times they're not. And it's more of an annoyance and an inconvenience. So, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, have you ever lost your pants? And not just pants, your only pair of pants. One summer, as a fisheries observer, I was flying to Cordova, Alaska. A very small remote port. I was going to be on a tiny plane that only had 2 seats. But I was an expert packer at this point, and I knew because I had 100 pounds of work gear that my personal gear was going to have to be really condensed. So I brought the bare essentials to balance it out. And I thought I brought enough. But summers in Alaska were great because that meant you only had to have 3 different layers of fleece. So I packed up all my work. I was 70 feet long with a crew of 4, so it was going to be tight. And we all stayed in bunks in the forepeak. 4 bunks, and right below the bunks were the galley table. And then there was this little tiny micro kitchen, and that was it. That meant the only space I had to put anything was in my bunk, and that was one of those times I was so thankful I'm short. After throwing everything I could in my bunk, I decided to go out and get the culture and taste of the town. When I got back to the boat that evening, I changed out of my town clothes. So that's the outfit you wear when you're traveling. And you stow it away once you get to the boat in plastic bags because that's the one thing you don't want to smell like fish from when you have to travel back. The vessel was targeting sablefish, and they were taking off the heads and guts at sea, which meant it was going to be a pretty messy trip. So even the times that I didn't wear my thick upper jacket and I just had my bibs on, I brought 2 pairs of working sweatpants for 10 days. That was sufficient. That was plenty. Except on day 2, I elected to permanently retire one of those pairs of sweatpants after a horrible mishap turned the toilet into a bidet. So that meant now, my second pair of sweatpants had to last 8. The trip ended, and by that time, those pair of sweatpants could stand on their own. They were covered with slime and fish parts and salt and sweat, and they were truly disgusting. I also knew that my employer was going to fly me out of Juneau, which is a fairly large airport and touristy section, and I was going to be on one of those big commercial airlines with lots of people who would pay lots of money to fly around Alaska. And I had no time to shower. That was going to be embarrassing enough after 10 days of not showering. So I went to find my town clothes, and I put on my shirt, and I couldn't find my pants. I looked all in my bunk. I looked around the cabin. There was no place for these pants to have gone. This crew was all in their 50s, and they had worked together for probably 30 years. You know, had I been on a boat with a bunch of 19-year-olds, I would have suspected some malarkey going on. I mean, I have on more than one occasion found my underwear up on a mast. But I really didn't think that was happening with this crew, and they were very nice, and they even looked in their boats. Maybe they flew out when the boat had rolled and landed somewhere else. No one could find the pants. Then I wondered, did I wear my pants back to the boat? But I realized that the shock of the metal railing as I climbed on board would have alerted me that I wasn't wearing pants. So the captain understood my dilemma, and he took some pity on me. And he offered me a pair of his pants. But he's 7 feet tall, and I am not. So I had to roll the cuff on the bottom, and roll the cuff on the bottom, and roll the cuff on the bottom. And he was also quite a bit wider than I am. I didn't have a belt, so I had to find some line on the vessel and tie it on with a really crude knot, and then the end result looked something like Tom Sawyer from Huckleberry Finn. But to top it all off, these weren't his town pants either. These are the ones that he used to work on the boat. There was a hole in the knee and a hole on the back, and there were grease stains and oil stains and paint splatters. So other than smelling better, these really weren't an improvement over what I had worn previously. Now you must have thought at this point he intended to throw these out anyway. Oh no, he asked me to mail them back. The cost of postage exceeded the cost to just replace these pants. So fellow Toastmasters, keep your friends close, your enemies even closer, and your only pair of pants closest.
Take a moment to fill out your individual evaluation forms, and before I call our table topics master up here, just a couple more thoughts about tourist season. I get people all the time come into the hotel room about one thing or another. They don't appreciate when they come here. And one of the things that people complain about sometimes, there's sand in my room. But when people complain about sand in their room or sand anyplace else, the first thing that comes to my mind is, lady, I did not put the sand in your room. That sand got in your room because you went to the beach, and your kids went to the beach, and your dogs went to the beach, and you all rode around and you played in the sand. And when you came back to the hotel, you brought that sand with you. Now, I'm thinking these things. I'm not allowed to say these things. But needless to say, living in Oregon, living on the Oregon coast here in Newport, I have an intimate relationship with sand. And odd as it might seem, I am not a fan of sand. I see I'm still going. I am going to invite our table topics mistress up anyway, and she's going to regale us with some challenging table topics, I am sure.
All right, so let's all put our sales hats on, because today we are all going to be selling vacation packages. Jaylene,
Yes.
please sell us a study abroad.
A study abroad.
Yes.
Oh. is Fellow Toastmasters, I would like to offer you a study abroad program on another planet. And here's the deal. All you have to do is say yes, say goodbye to your family. We will load you on the trip, we will load you on the ship for the trip. You don't have to choose the planet. You don't have to pack any clothes. We'll do all of that for you. It's very simple to say yes. No hurdles for you to jump across, no essays for you to write. You just turn yourselves over to us, and we will send you away on this trip to another planet. And the surprise is, you may or may not return.
That's a great song.
Diane, please choose a vacation for a loved one.
Thank you, Madam Topics Mistress. Vacation for a loved one. Let me think about this for a second. I have a vacation for my husband. I would like him to go on vacation. My husband's name is Keith. And I would like for him to go on vacation where he doesn't get sick. Because the last 2 vacations that we have been on, he has gotten sick. And my dream for him, and I want to sell him this vacation, is to go to a wonderful place where he just has fun and he doesn't get sick. Thank you, Madam Topics List.
I'm not calling you Brian, Dad. Sell us a cruise.
Well, thank you for that. I have a vacation to die for. The best cruise that you can possibly have. And for those of us that grew up in the 60s and 70s, and I think this sitcom was still going in the 80s, and every now and then I still see it around TV, is I think a 3-hour cruise leaving from somewhere in Hawaii, because you saw all these wonderful people get on. You had the girl next door. You had this beautiful actress. She must have been a 10. You had a really smart guy that could take coconuts and be able to talk and communicate with each other. You had a skipper that that just abused his first mate. And then you had the rich couple. And then me, and hopefully my wife or you could get on this cruise. You could go for 3 hours and it will be never ending. You'll meet people like Japanese soldiers from World War II. You'll have people swimming and coming into your bay. You'd have monkeys just appear out of nowhere and get to be your best friend. I mean, what else would you want to do except for go on a 3-hour cruise, live on an island with all these people, and I think they did get rescued at one point. So, ladies, this is a vacation.
Lee, an all-inclusive vacation package, where would that be?
Well, Toastmasters, I have had the opportunity to be in Europe 4 different times. If I had an all-inclusive vacation package, I would probably go back to Europe. I very much enjoyed it there, and because I speak one of them, I'm going to get around. And in most places, they speak English, so if you don't speak their language, they can help you out, except France. They speak English, but they don't want you to know they do, and they don't want to go very much, at least in Paris. But southern Germany is wonderful, and the Swiss Alps are wonderful. The Austrian and Italian and French Alps, I haven't been to the French Alps, but I'd like to go there. So I think I would make my all-inclusive trip in southern Europe, centrally around Switzerland, especially if it was paid, because Switzerland is one of the most expensive places to go. If you go to Switzerland, you're best to go to Germany, find lodging, go into Switzerland for a day, go back out, stay overnight, go back into Switzerland, because the hotels are so much more expensive there. Some of the neat places to go are these ski lifts, tram cars that go from down in the valley to the top of a mountain. And because of the Canterbury angle of the cable, you start out going almost parallel with the ground. And the farther you get up, the last 100 yards, it feels like you are going straight up until you land in the docking station for the lift at the top. Some of them have a cogwheel train in tunnels, so you can actually take the train, the lift to the top, and take the train back down. But the first third of the way back down is in the tunnel. You have no idea where you are. It's totally dark except for the lights inside the train. But I believe, although I've been there before, that's where I would go for the all-expense paid vacation. That's where I would like to go.
Fun round. Well, before we vote, before you elect the table topics winner, could I get a time limit report
Yes.
on what was up to this point?
Okay, yes, John, your time was 7 minutes and 20 seconds. Krista, 5 minutes and 48 seconds. Jaylene, 52 seconds. Diane, 58 seconds. Brian, 1 minute and 41 seconds. And Lee, 2 minutes and 7 seconds.
And since this is just our club contest, nobody is disqualified. Please send your vote for the favorite table topic to Laura Lee, so we can have that taken care of at the end of the meeting. I think it's time now to start the evaluation portion. Our first evaluator is going to be Christina, is going to be evaluating John. Welcome, Christina. I forgot a good introduction for Christina. I know she's very involved. I enjoy going to meetings with her and listening to her day after some of the other engineers in town on Friday mornings. And Friday mornings, if you want to have a lot of fun, go to a meeting of the engineers at where they meet now.
Local worship.
At the local Ocean State. So
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. John, great job today. I really, really loved your topic. It's something at least I don't know anything about, but I find it very fascinating to learn about. You definitely use some words that I don't think I could repeat in the scientific world. So that was great to be able to say those words very confidently. You didn't stammer, which a lot of people do when they have a little bit more complicated words or phrases to say. I did notice that your eye contact, it seemed to float just in front of the lectern. So when you're doing that, I know it's you don't really want to look at people sometimes, but I find that I look past people, and that's my trick, so that it looks like I'm giving eye contact, but I'm not. But I think you did a really good job referring to, it didn't look like you had a ton of them, so great job on memorizing majority of your speech. Yeah, I think that was the main thing to work on. You did a great job with your body posture. You didn't have any fidgety things like I do that I've been doing while I'm up here. Oh, the one thing I wanted to point out was the overall organization of the speech. Once you got through it, I understood all the different pieces to it, but giving us a little snippet of what you're going to be talking about just lays the structure for us to be able to follow along a little bit easier. So from what I saw, it was, what is it? What's the application and what are the ethics around that? And then it gives you a good structure to be able to build on at the end so that you can kind of remind people what you talked about and then really go out with a bang. But overall, that was a very good speech.
she almost abandoned the film there. Remember. Our second evaluator is making his way up here. He's just dying to come up. Evaluate Krista. Please welcome Brian.
Well, Krista did a speech number 4 in the Humorously Speaking Manual. It's keep them laughing. And oh my goodness, you kept us laughing. The purpose for the speech is for them to present a 5 to 7 minute speech that begins with a self-deprecating joke, has at least 2 sets of jokes in the speech body, and ends with a humorous story. Re-emphasize the speech's main points. So I think she did a great job. The beginning, you grabbed our attention with the joke. It allowed the audience to get to know you better so that you can know who you are and what you're doing. It brought the point of the speech right at the very beginning as well. So it really introduced the topic of the speech. It provided, one of the questions is how well did the jokes illustrate or emphasize the speaker's points? Well, I think that the jokes that were provided helped us to be able to visualize what life at sea was and what was going on. I mean, you're taking the jokes, you're setting up the joke, and then you're rolling the pant leg and rolling the pant leg. And so you're giving some very good visual points with your joke as well. So not only do we have the joke, but we also get to participate and visualize with. One of the other questions is how well was the set of jokes in the speech, how well were they tied together and they were spaced appropriate? So it wasn't like laugh, 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 and then a long period of doldum. It was very well doldum. I think that is a correct word, Latin based. I like to elect that word, you know. It's well spaced, and they all related to the lost pants. And so you were either building towards the lost pants with the jokes, or you were referring back to the lost pants, up to and including the wrap up, which is a great way to end the story, to end the humorous speech, and to wrap the entire speech together. So excellent.
I thought it was interesting that both speeches today were about jeans.
Oh.
Well, before I turn it over to our general evaluator, we have one more important item of business. Do we have a table topics champion today?
Do.
That's a drum roll for.
All right.
And me.
Well,
I was taking a video. All right, we're gonna do that. There's a video if you want to put it on the website.
Couldn't do that with my dad's old Super 8.
And the last, I generally evaluators, generally evaluators.
As far as the meeting went, we started right on time, exactly 7 o'clock. We're running a little bit late, but that's okay. Dave, one thing that you did that I harp on all the time in this club is that you didn't announce the speech objectives. So you wrote manual speeches. We didn't know why what they were trying to accomplish with it. And we really need to do a better job of that because I think we can all target our evaluations given the objectives. So I realized you came in late and sounded like there was a little bit of communication mishap. And that's where getting a little bit early, if you don't have that information, get the titles, the time, the objectives, if you are running the meeting during the day. Lorelli, I thought you had great table topics. Those were very creative. Not something we normally get. How am I going to answer this? Because so often it's just these stories, and instead we're asked to do something very different. So I thought that was really cool. As far as the speech evaluations, so Christina, when the Toastmaster doesn't announce the objectives, then you can follow Brian's model, which is these are the objectives. So you gave that without telling us what the objectives were, and I think especially manual speeches, it's really important to evaluate them given the objectives. Because you wrote down a bunch of stuff in this. That said, I thought you did a really nice job of describing what John did well and then how he might improve and giving really good concrete suggestions. And then Brian, the old hand and speech reviewers went through in great detail on what the objectives were, and we all were like, oh, light bulbs going off. That's exactly what she said, and really made it sense. And then I particularly thought your comment about how not only was Krista giving us oral humor, but also visual humor really good. And again, ways to improve. I don't think you did, and that's something I couldn't think of anything that we could do better. Sure. So it's tough when you have really good speakers to come up with something. But we all want to improve our speaking, so I think it's really critical that we try and think of anything that you think would help, and perhaps just a little bit smoother. With that, I will return control today.
It's been a while since I've done this, and with recovering from the stroke and everything, I totally forgot that we have a time limit here for this meeting. But I had fun anyway. I hope everybody else did. Yes, ma'am. We have the preliminary report.
We do, yes. I had so much fun catching phrases. I want to share some. I had to select which ones to share because there are so many. The ums and ahs were quite small. I just counted a few. These are some of the phrases I love them. By CRISPR. I can never say what CRISPR actually means. Altering generations, disease, children, hereditary aristocracy of power. Nothing lost until mom can't find it. Underwear up on the mast. Shock of the metal railing and town pants.
Now, Mr. President,
Yeah, I didn't count that. He added himself on that one.
Well, it looks